welcome back to the Shift RSA. My name is Jean, and today you join me in a 2012 BMW M5. This is the F10 variant. So this one comes with a S63 twin-turbo 4.4 litre V8. And your headline figures from the factory is about 553 horsepower. That's claimed from BMW. That power also makes its way to the rear wheels via a 7-speed DCT gearbox. She makes 400 kilowatts to the wheels and 740 wheel newton meters. Now the reason I say that, because as you know, some people have a tendency to measure the power from the crank, which is not wrong. You do need to see what kind of power the engine itself makes, but in terms of what you're actually getting to the surface of the road, knowing that the rest of the drivetrain is healthy is why you measure at the wheels. So that's what she makes. We didn't have a lot of time today to review this car. I've only got a few hours and I've had to take pictures and do all that kind of thing. So all I'm going to do is I'm in the car now. I'm going to hop on the highway, so I won't be able to explore all of its dynamic sort of capabilities, but I still think it's going to be fun. I think it's a very powerful car and I'm quite keen to see what this V8 does. In my experience with BMWs, they've all been either 4 cylinders or straight 6s, so I'm very keen to see what happens here with 4.4 litres worth of V8 and 2 turbos strapped to it. So at the moment we're driving in comfort mode, and I have to say it's very unsuspecting. It feels like any other 5 Series I've driven. I've driven a 523 before, which is a pretty vanilla version of this car, and it kind of feels the same. Like, it's big, it's a very boaty car. It's one of the few cars that I find where the sizes really match my dimensions. So I'm a very tall guy, and I really feel like the right size in this car. Nothing feels too small. That's comfort mode. There's not much to say about it. You're cruising along. You are quite aware that the V8 is there. The car isn't too sharp. It's not doing sports car things just yet, but I can change that, and that's by hitting the M1 button twice. There we go. Even as you hit that button, it kind of downshifts. The heads-up display gives me a more colorful picture. It almost like alerts you, okay, we are moving now. Okay, I've switched it over to manual. I just like to be in control. I'm quite wary of doing pulls on the highways because in South Africa our cops have a very sneaky way of catching people. So what they do is they drive in unmarked Golf 7 GTIs, and they sort of roam the streets very unsuspectingly. And the funny thing is they might even try and poke you to see if they can get a reaction out of you and to get you to misbehave. And then the moment you do, the blue lights come up. So I'm quite wary of that. I'm not going ridiculous speed. So I'm not advocating being irresponsible, but I mean, you got to be, got to sort of be aware of those things. I should not have filmed this on a Saturday. The road is so congested. I think I'm going to have to get creative and go find a piece of road where there's no one. Quick update, I'm lost. One thing I will say, since we pulled away at that robot now, and I've had a few short stints just stopping and starting, one thing I've noticed is that the gearbox is quite like notchy when you engage it. I have noticed that in M cars before, but it's quite an odd sensation. It's not like a normal sort of torque converter where you sort of just step off the brake and the car goes on its own, which is quite odd. Once you take your foot off the brake, you have to kind of let it know, okay, we're going, and then it like, and then you go. All right, enough faffing around looking for nice roads. I'm just gonna hop back on the highway, a more quiet part of the highway, may I add, and let's see what she does. Okay, let's quickly touch on one topic. Because it's such a big car, it masks the speed very well. So you could be punting it, getting on the highway, without realizing you're actually hooning it. By the time you look at the speedo, you're probably doing an incriminating speed, and that's something definitely to be wary of. Speaking of the size of the car, it's also worth mentioning that when you make big sports cars, because you have to kind of aggressively dampen the suspension to still get that really responsive feeling in the bends, you actually end up with quite a stiff feeling suspension. Now, I mentioned earlier that in the comfort setting it wasn't so bad, but I am noticing it now. The only reason I bring that up is because before I've mentioned that in lighter cars you don't need to dampen the suspension so aggressively, whereas here you do. and you do start to notice it when you go over small bumps. It can end up feeling like a bit of a hot hatch in the way that it's just sort of crude. It's sort of rough and coarse. But it's just effortless speed though. Wow, this thing doesn't break a sweat at all. Building up speed, there's not much in it. Traction is off at the moment as well, and from what I've heard, this car can start spinning up even when you are going sort of cruising speeds. So that's not something I intend on doing here on a public road. But I think what would be a good idea is to do some proper hooning, and for the owner to sit here, for me to sit over there, and then for us to get an idea of what the car really does. I think that's not a bad idea. Like I said, today was a very last minute thing. I'm lucky enough to be driving this car at the moment. It's not a full Top Gear style review, but I am doing my absolute best, and I'm working with what I can. And here's what I can tell you from my experience. Big car, lots of space, lots of engine, lots of brakes, definitely a presence on the road, especially in this black color. It's quite mean. Now, if I had to describe this car using a metaphor, I would actually say it's almost like having a geography teacher at school. Very unsuspecting guy, very reliable, very neat, probably sometimes even a bit boring. He probably wears a lot of beige. He probably flies under the radar for the most part. And then you kind of picture that same teacher doing cage fighting. Every weeknight he's at some dodgy little gym, busy training, busy working up a sweat, hitting the heavy bag, and doing these like underground fights and bare knuckle fights. That's sort of what this car is like. Yes, taxis, honestly. I'll be quite honest, I really haven't been hooning it since I've been in it. I don't have a whole day with the car, so I can't take an hour to drive it and to get used to it. I kind of have to hop in and start filming right from the get-go. But like I said, that's why the owner, Duncan, who was so nice to let me drive it, that's why I think I'm going to ask him to have a seat and to show us what this car can do in his hands. He knows the car. He's been hooning around in it quite a bit. So I think that's probably a more responsible thing to do. And you'd be surprised, driving other people's cars requires a lot of responsibility. So let me rather do that. No indicator, that's all right. 2 cars at once. I guess that's how circles work now. Am I rude? I'm not rude. Okay, I'm pulling back into the mall now. I think it's time for Duncan to hop in and show us what she really does. Okay guys, so we're back in the car now. As promised with Duncan, he's going to take us for a bit of a joyride.
Good day viewers, I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I will be dispensing some gasoline for you guys to have for your hearing pleasure. So just to give some light on the current setup of this particular BMW. This is my 2012 M5, as I'm pretty sure my esteemed colleague here would have told you. The vehicle does have downpipes fitted from Strata Performance. However, it doesn't have any other modifications as of yet. When I can, I will be doing some software to the vehicle as well as resonator deletes, because it's a V8. So the very interesting thing about these particular vehicle is on 95 the car has a 17 psi map from BMW. However, if the opportunity arises for the vehicle and it takes you've got a higher octane, like when we did at a dyno day where the car was running NF, which gave it about a 98 to a 99 octane rating, the car has a default 22 psi map, which in turn is no word of lie, picks up nearly 50 kilowatts to the wheels in terms of power, which is absolutely ridiculous. Torque is unfortunately capped at 800 to save the gearbox, but well, once we do software, we'll remove those limiters and then see what she can really do.
It's M3.
Yeah, it's M3. Let's go with the dice. Buddy.
What mode are we in now?
Currently we are just in the standard comfort mode, efficient, comfort and more comfort. Once I put my car into M mode, well, my pre-configured M, as the vehicle does have 2 options for you, M1 and M2. This is driver specified M modes. So it is completely dependent on what you, as the owner of the vehicle, like. If you want slower turning but you want sharper throttle, or if you just want the adaptive suspension to be angry all the time, not angry, that's up to you. However, you can configure it here at the bottom if you really so wish, but I'm lazy. I just prefer setting it up one time and then just leaving it like that. Right, so let's drop 2 gears. So that's 4,200 RPM at 100 k's an hour. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's 100, that's 100, that's 100, that's 100. We are at, and let's tap off for a little bit. Obviously, all this is all taking place in Mexico. We have flown this vehicle out to the United States and have crossed the borders into Mexico.
Just for this clip.
Just to take this video. We are dedicated to give you the best content possible. Let's do that again. Let's drop another gear, 4,500. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we are going 55, 51, and we've done a fabulous 52 miles an hour, just for American viewers, if you are wondering.
If you measure in hot dogs. So what 0 to 60 times should these be able to do?
Well, according to AutoDriver, 0 to 62 on this vehicle, so it's 0 to 100, is 4.2 seconds.
Okay.
The best I believe I have achieved thus far was 4.65. And you see all the Vietnamese.
So objectively speaking, comparing to all the other cars you've driven before, how does this one stack up? Talk about the size of the car.
Well, this is we can politely put it as a massive family limousine. I mean, we can probably fit at least 4 Americans in this car. I mean, at least.
How many Mexicans?
Well, I mean Mexicans probably 38 at least. It's quoted as a family vehicle, and we can easily fit 5 individuals into this car.
Okay.
That guy's having fun here in Mexico.
Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, I love this vehicle because I can just put it in its comfier setting, and it will eat up highway miles like it's absolutely nothing. The biggest downside to this vehicle is not, people say, the servicing. Engine services are cheap. That is maybe for a major for oil filters, and labors, 2,500 rand. That's not exactly what I consider as fortune. For American viewers, that's about $220, give or take. Spark plugs, if you're going to do spark plugs and all that, will be 5,000 rand. So it's about $370 US at that particular stage. The only thing that really hurts is when you have to replace brake discs. Well, BMW has quoted me at 9,000 rand each, which is a lot. I mean, that hurts. There's no way getting around that. That is just shocking. However, if we consider that you have to stop this car, if you're assuming you can de-restrict it from over 200 miles an hour, fair enough. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a safety thing as well. It's for your own peace of mind.
It keeps you safe. And if we objectively look at it, our rear discs in this family sedan is larger than an M4's front discs. I mean, it's stupid. This is just a conglomerate of numbers. However, for the prospective buyer that thinks, do I need an F10 M5? The answer is yes. Yes, you do. I cannot think of a better car. It's comfortable. You've got space for, I mean, realistically, you've got space for your missus. If you have children or want to have children, there's plenty of space in the back. Your boot is ginormous.
Or as the Americans call it, the trunk.
Yeah, your trunk. Do I regret it some days? Yes. So it's expensive. Expensive to run, expensive to maintain. Well, not that expensive to maintain, but things like these brakes kind of do scare me. I won't lie, that does hurt. But other than that,
do the special moments make up for that?
Oh, every single time. When you put your foot down, it just makes up for it. When you're on a long road driving 300 kilometers, it's fabulous. So yes, some days you're gonna go, oh, did I do the right thing? Every morning you get in it, you hit the start button, And you just think to yourself, yes.
Or the answer you
Yes, I did. That's the long and the short of it.
Cool, thank you so much for taking us for a drive. Let's hoon it some more, and then we'll get some outside shots.
Fabulous. Woo! Sideways.
Yes. That sounds very good.
Imagine that's what it sounds like in the car. I can only imagine how loud and annoying it is out the car.
It's quite beautiful outside, I'm not going to lie.
Well, I think unless you're the old lady that just thinks, what is this? We must snap and make it doesn't work. I have no idea. My grandmother thinks my car's broken because it makes such a noise. However, she just says, as long as you're enjoying it, dear. Can't argue with that, can you?
See, that's what I was referring to when I said I'm not going to hoon someone else's car.
Sometimes I forget what a ride this thing can be. You put in an M and you tell it, let's have fun, and it just says, okay. But the problem is, sometimes it's a very close cut between having fun and I'm going to kill you now.
Yes.
That's why I prefer I always just switch the traction, just stage one off on the public road. I will never switch it completely off.
And I've heard many people say that actually.
It's if you do switch it completely off, you have a death wish.
Okay guys, that's it from me for today. Thanks for coming along and for joining me just to have a quick squirt in the M5. I'll see you around. And as always guys, please be safe out there. Remember to like and subscribe if I've earned it.